Welcome to the Healing for Male Survivors podcast. This is a podcast for male survivors of sexual abuse and assault, whether as a child or as an adult. Know that you are not alone and the abuse was not your fault. My name is Mike Chapman. I'm a certified recovery life coach and also a survivor. Let's find hope and healing together. And welcome to is this week 3? This is week 4 or 5. I think we're on week 5 of live, Tuesday Night Live on our Healing for Male Survivors podcast. And this week we have Ed K as our guest. He chooses some anonymity, which we always respect here. And his intro that he shared, Ed is a native of the Twin Cities area in Minnesota. After years of denial, he found his way to the husband material community a little less than 6 months ago. After a few weeks, he uncovered some suppressed memories, which the host of this podcast, that would be me, I guess, quickly noticed needed more attention. And Ed appreciates that a lot. You're welcome, Ed. He's not really sure he wants to talk about it out loud, but he's going to anyway because he knows it's a necessary step to healing. Amen. This is his first work in any kind of therapy or help with CSA, childhood sexual abuse, and tonight is his first spoken revelation of his abuse. He has not written any books and is not a professional speaker. So with that, I would like to welcome Ed K to the podcast. Yay! Welcome, Ed.
Hello. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, guys, for coming.
Yes. And we have a few people in our audience live, and if you would ever like to join us live, you can find the information. We meet Tuesday nights, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. If you would like to join us, information on how to join us is at polarlifeconsulting.com/live. And for those audience members who are here, if you want to chime in with Q&A, you can do so, and you can add your name to the beginning of your message if you want to be mentioned by name. Otherwise, we will keep your questions anonymous as well. And so, Ed, let's start with our warm-ups of 4 questions. Now it's time for 4 questions, that part of the podcast when we get to know our guest a bit better by asking a few questions. Let's go. So, first question, what is your favorite food memory?
So I was thinking about food memories, and one that was really meaningful to me and that I really remember fondly is when I was in college and I was starving. I was basically, paying my own tuition and making $4 an hour working, which was pretty good at the time, $4 an hour working in the dorm cafeteria. And I was cleaning like big pots and pans, and there was this whole untouched pan of it was like some sort of like enclosed taco thing, and I was starving, and I ate like 6 of them, and then I dumped a bunch of them in my backpack, and I still love those little taco things. But it was like really it was like a really warming moment. I was on the elevator actually eating them so that nobody saw me.
Yeah, so they were probably just going to throw them out anyway, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that was a good gig working there. I remember my college days when I got off the food plan, out of the dorms, and into my own apartment. Yeah, and the money got short. It was living off of ramen and popcorn. And yeah, I got to a very unhealthy weight back then. At my height, and you guys know how big I am. I am a Santa Claus portrayal artist, but I was down to 165 at my thinnest in college. And yeah, so I understand those starving college student days for sure. That's like a treasure trove, and it's like, yeah, you earn that. Yeah, and all food tastes really good when you're hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was really good at ramen. I wouldn't eat. I would stir the packets, take the packets into the boiling noodles. So I would drain the noodles first and then just stir the seasoning mix in with the noodles and be like
They were
really
like 5 for
spicy.
$1 too, I think.
Yeah, spicy and flavorful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you back then is like a dime a pack, something like that. So definitely would fill you up. So
Yeah.
but yeah, I remember those. So that's excellent. What is your favorite Christmas or holiday memory?
So I've a Christmas memory from about, I'll say 12 years ago, maybe 13. It was when um, all my kids were still in school, like high
Mhm.
school or under, and all four of our parents, my wife's parents and my parents, were all still alive, and we had lots of little kids running around. And but it was also the first year that the Kim's dad, my wife's dad, couldn't really host anymore, and there was all these extra people. So I said, I'll do it. And then um, I actually ended up feeding like 27 people, and
Wow.
and it was fun. I just made this orange glazed chicken, and everybody was really happy and celebrating, and it went really awesome. And I had my family. It was like a blended event, which never happens, but it hasn't happened since. But my parents and her parents and all the kind of these everybody that was around came to our house, packed it in, and I didn't produce one drop of sweat the whole time. Um, and
Good.
people were like saying, how do you do this? And I'm just like, I don't know, I just do it. I worked in a restaurant, so I knew how to do that.
Oh,
But
well, yeah.
anyway, it's a
So
really fun memory. Yeah.
of course, I used to work in a restaurant too, but I was not in the cook side. I was just the clean the tables and
Hmm.
wash the dishes.
Hmm.
But I know, yeah, if you're like a chef, you have to plan the meals and plan cooking times, and so everything is ready when it's supposed to be ready, and planning all of that. I mean, that's a lot.
I
So
would never do it
definitely,
now.
right, yes. So that's excellent. Um, yeah. So now, what about what is your favorite church memory?
So my favorite church memory is from actually this last Christmas season.
Mhm.
I We had a lot of chaos. I was starting husband material and having lots of anxiety, and my wife had just broken her knee. She has lots of falls and trouble
Right.
navigating and whatnot. And so it was a very high stressful time, and my kids were like all doing stuff, and we basically had no plans for Christmas. And I had to go work tech at my church, and something had just happened. I think, I had to we had to deal with an emergency at home right before I left, and I was just all super agitated, and I snapped at one of my um, one of my church people came up and asked me something. I said, no, just like yelled at him. And then and then he comes later, and he's just like really nice. Didn't ask me why I did that, but he just was checking in. And he said, he said, yeah, I have to leave pretty soon. I'm going home to decorate Christmas cookies. And I'm like, oh, Christmas cookies. And he says, you're upset about Christmas cookies. And I'm like, yeah, we don't have any. We're not going to have any. We're not even really doing anything for Christmas. And he says, I'm bringing you Christmas cookies. So he and
Oh,
his wife brought this huge tray of like 40 cookies over, and
wow.
it was just like it was like the community thing, the kind of he's not really
Uh-huh.
like a really good friend. I still not, I
Right.
mean, he's not an enemy or anything, but it was just like, that just really
More of
meant a lot.
a church acquaintance, but showing love. Um, yeah,
And I
that's
cried when I got those cookies.
oh,
Yeah.
because they were made with love and given with love and received with love, and
Yeah.
those are really the best gifts. And yeah, that's so sweet. I love it, and it's a Christmas memory, and it's a food memory too.
Yeah.
Yay!
Right. I had to figure
So
which
there you go.
category.
Yeah, yeah, but I love that. Showing God's love through simple acts of service like that. Yes, it's good. That's excellent. So, last question: what is your favorite scripture or Any inspirational quote that has helped you on your spiritual journey, and what about it speaks to you?
So that's a pretty easy one. Psalm 51, which is basically the core that is created me a clean heart, oh God,
Oh, yeah.
is the big thing that comes out of that. And there was a kind of a subset of that psalm that was in a song that I had I learned and I memorized, and I did it over and over and over when I kind of first had a crisis. When I first started coming out of denial about some of my unwanted behaviors,
Mhm.
and it was really comforting to me, and it connected me, and then I heard Drew Drew's thing that he did this summer in California, and that
Uh-huh.
just it throttled me, and I heard it again in a different way. And so Psalm 51.
Excellent. Yes, that's a good one. And I love that song. That was um, big in the 80s and 90s. In Christian circles.
Was it that
Creating
created
a
me a
clean
clean
heart.
heart, oh God? Or
Oh,
maybe
that's a
read a
different
different.
version.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm thinking of the Maranatha. I think it's the Maranatha version from the 80s, but it sounds like you got a different version. Now, there's always several different versions of that.
yeah.
Oh,
So anyway,
interesting.
yeah,
Interesting. Of course, we can't sing too much or we'll get copyright
I know.
issues.
Look that up.
But 30 seconds or less, and you're as long as you're talking about the song, it's okay. So we're talking about the songs and 30 seconds or less. So we're good.
The song is
Um,
public domain. So.
yeah, well, some of them are. Some of them aren't. Yeah, a lot of the old hymns are. Cool. Well, that's excellent. So let's go into your story. And I know when I share my story, there's not a clear beginning, middle, and end. I'm kind of start in the middle, and then I backtrack and I kind of jump all over the place because that's how our stories are. So feel free to start wherever you wish and let us know how you got to where you're at now. What happened, and how have you progressed in your healing journey?
So I'm going to be pretty linear. I mean, kind of like start because, and this came to me
Let's
in
do.
lots of different chunks, but I kind of
Uh-huh.
organized it because I had to keep
Right.
going back farther and farther to say, where did this really start? Where did this actually start?
And
And
that's part of telling your story is it makes you think about it. It's like, oh, what is my story? And then realizing, yeah, well, when did it start? And that's part of the healing journey as well. Just that exercise of looking at your history, looking at when did it start? When and like mine was pretty much before I was born that my parents must have made decisions that led to the ultimate abuse. But it took a long time, decades before even discovering that. All of our stories, they're never set in stone because God reveals more and more about it to us as we progress, as we are able to hear and understand and not freak out about our pasts. So
well,
proceed.
some of the pieces I remembered little bits and pieces of it. I'm not gonna like when I'm telling my story, I'm not gonna tell you this is one that I recalled recently or a long time ago. But I'm
Uh,
gonna start just for a second at like when I started husband material and I quickly dived into regression stuff. I had done some child work in the 80s, kind of new agey stuff, but it didn't get me anywhere
uh,
near this point. So I kind of understood the concept, and so I dived in really deep, and I ended up in a place that really shocked me. And I ended up, for those of you who have read it um, on the CSI fellowship page, there's I wrote some journal entries in the voice of my person at the different ages I was at. But so here's what I found out. I'm going to start at second grade is the first kind of sexual memory that I remember. And I was second grade. I was camping with my family, and there was another family. And this older kid was like, I don't know, maybe sixth or seventh grade. He said, "Hey, let's go play on the rocks." And then we went and played on the rocks, and then we both had to go to the bathroom. So we went into an outhouse, and he proceeded to pee on me. So that was kind of like my first thing that I remember. And I remember that I didn't have words for this, but he was erect and he was peeing on me. It's like a fragment memory, and I was like, okay, that's weird. And then I remembered that third and fourth grade, my neighbor boy and I, we built a fort. It was really cool. And then we also built this bench that you could pull down, and then it would be like a 2-hole toilet that we would use. And we only used it like once, I think, and we didn't do anything other than just go to the bathroom. But that was weird. And then and this is often where, when I go back and do child work now, this is like me at that age in that fort, is who I find. I'm like, I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to the guy a year or two younger than you, but that's what I keep running into. And then things, kind of progress through school. Like 5th grade, I learned the C word for women's anatomy, and my friend demonstrated it to me on his dog and showed it, and he was putting things in and out of the dog.
Wow.
And then he said, we should do the dog. And I'm like, I don't know what you mean, but I don't like the sounds of that. And I kind of like left and didn't want to do whatever it was he was talking about. I was really naive about everything. So I had going into 7th grade, I had 1 pubic hair.
So the when you were in 5th grade, that other boy, did he actually do anything to the female dog, or
I think he was planning to, and I just left because it made me feel weird. So
right.
But he was like, I mean, he was really getting into getting that opening prepped and like really working it. I remember that.
Right. But then exposing you to, as a child, to that concept even is, yeah, quite a lot to have to even contemplate, for sure. Wow.
Yeah, so then kind of like piecing this all together, I'm like, this stuff kind of starts building. It's probably not unusual for, any elementary school kid to kind of get exposed to these things. But I went to 7th grade. It was a new school. It was like, I went from my little elementary school to 7th grade, and I had 1 pubic hair, I remember. The first day of school. And I didn't really know what was happening. My dad didn't talk to me about it at all. The other boys in my elementary school didn't really, other than this, like the kid with the dog. And so I went to school in my denim brown leisure suit the first day. I was really dressed up. I think sort of nondescript first couple months of school, but then December. So I went in December 1975, and this is where like I don't remember basically anything from December 1975 through the end of my 7th grade year. So this is all the new stuff here. And I guess I'll start with, so my birthday was in December of 1975, and I turned 13. And my brother, in front of the whole family, we're having cake and presents and stuff. My brother gave me a Playboy magazine. He was 4 years older than me. I opened it up. I'm like, and of course, the first thing that flies out is the centerfold.
Right.
I'm just like, I'm looking at it. I didn't know how to react. I didn't know. And then so my dad's laughing. He says, I bet he doesn't know what to do with that. And my brother says, he'll figure it out. And then my dad and my brother both laughed. And my mom gasped. And I'm like, I'm already not understanding why, but I knew I didn't want to stand up because it was already having an effect on my body, but I didn't know why. I didn't get it.
Right.
And then all I'm thinking is everybody's laughing at me, and my older sister had gone off to college, and if she was there, that she wouldn't have let that happen. And I'm just like, I wanted her there. So I brought it.
Compared to other boys in your school, were you like a late bloomer, or you were kind of in the middle?
I'd say
Like
kind
you
of
mentioned,
in the
just having
middle.
the one hair.
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't really, in elementary school, you don't really see anybody, and I mean, their
Right,
voice is kind of squeaky and
right,
whatever. And we had the kind of the fundamental sex ed class, where we
right,
talked about reproduction and stuff,
right.
but I didn't really get it. And, you know, some of the other, I remember boys making jokes and laughing, and I'm like, I don't know why I don't get what you're talking about. Because I remember one of the boys saying something about, um, I don't know, he asked the principal, "Are you going to give us rubbers?" And then everybody laughed. I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah. So I was really, really naive, and
So you didn't even know what a rubber was.
no, and
Right.
but
Yeah,
somehow I remembered the word, but I'm like, what?
right. I can totally relate. Yeah, I was very much naive at that age for sure.
Yeah,
Very sheltered and yeah.
yeah. So I took the Playboy over to my friend's house. We had an overnight the following weekend, and I showed him I got this, and he's like, "Oh yeah, it's nice." And then he showed me all the magazines that he had what were his dad's, and I'm like, "This is weird." And then my friend says, "Play robber," and I'm like, "Okay," because we always played games and stuff. Um, so I said, "Okay." I didn't know what he meant. So he gets out some rope and he tied me up and pulled off my pants and then proceeded to do me with his hand. And I had
Right.
never done anything. I didn't know what that was. And then I'm sick. I have some kind of infection. I couldn't stop my pee, and I didn't know what was going on. Yeah, and then he left me tied up for a bit, and then he did himself. I'm like, no, I don't get this. I think I get it. I think I'm starting to get it. I'm not sure. So next couple of days, I was like worried I had an infection because I was like really irritated and I was constantly erect, and I thought
Right. Something must
something's
be
wrong.
wrong down there. Yes.
Yeah, and so it was Christmas time, and I was shopping with my mom, and we went to, it was like an old-fashioned downtown department store, like 8 stories
Right.
with escalators and all this.
Right. Like a
And
Macy's type. Yes.
mhm. And so I was really irritated. I mean, I was like physically having a problem. So I thought, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. So I was with my mom, and I went in the bathroom, and I'm in the urinal. It's like I didn't really have to pee. Didn't really. I don't know what was going on. And there's this old guy. I say old guy. He could have been 50 or 70, 90. He looked 90 to me. And then he looks at me, and he says, "Can I touch it?" And I'm like, "No," like turning away. And then
And
and then
how
he
old
pulls
were you at this time?
I was just 13.
Wow. Yeah.
So he pulls out a $20 bill. He says, "I'll give you this." And I said, "No." And so then he puts the money in my pocket, and then he reaches out and touches me anyway. And
Wow.
and then so um, I released myself in his hand, and then he proceeded to like rub it all over himself, and then he pushed me into the wall, and then like forcing my hand to touch him,
Wow.
and so I'm like,
So
and I,
sorry
I
that
can
happened.
I can
Yeah.
remember all the colors of the room, and the layout, and every, like, a lot of details. And so
Right.
he's like making me touch him, and I'm like, this is not right. So I got in my pocket and the $20 bill onto the floor, and kind of dodged under him, ran out of the bathroom, right past my mom. Her back was there, so I ran the other way. I get over to the escalators, trying to go up and down, and then this guy's behind me, and he's like,
The same guy. Wow.
same
He
guy. He
chased
like
you.
he was like, and he was like on the escalator thing, and he's like waving the money at me and smiling this really horrible smile, and
Ew.
and I went darting in and out between the displays and the up and down stairs, back stairways, and he was always there. So finally, I got back to my mom and I said, "We have to leave. I don't feel good. Can we go home?" And she's like, "Oh, maybe you should go in the bathroom." And I said, "No, I don't think so. I just want to go home." And then
Right.
I'm talking to her, and this guy's right behind her, and he's like holding his money up, and he's looking at me and just smiling, and we made it out of there.
Wow.
Yeah. So
And for any of these instances, sounds like you never told anyone about any of these things. Is that right? Is that what I'm
not out
sensing?
loud. Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of have written him up before, and no, I haven't. So
Wow. So you're saying even now, this is the first time you have actually talked about these things out loud.
mm,
Wow. Well, I'm so honored that you would trust me here as a platform for this. But yeah, it's a lot to share these
yeah,
horrible things that happened.
yeah, it's not something I want to like do in front of like a bigger audience.
Right.
Well, live. I mean, I know this recorded and all, and that's all right.
Right.
So
And one thing good about sharing in a podcast, once it's public, even though you're anonymous, you can then, yeah, I shared all my stuff. You can just give someone the link to the podcast and then they can listen on their own. And then you don't have to say it again. And I've done that several times when I first shared, because then it's like, okay, I wanted certain people to hear it, but I didn't want to say it again. So that was nice. And so that will be a good avenue for you as well, where you could share this link with others. And when you feel they're ready to hear it, and you don't necessarily have to say it again. So, yes, please continue.
so then I'm like panicking because when I left my friend's house the couple of days before that, I'm like, I left my magazine there. I don't know what he's going to do with it. So I went back to get it. And then so he wants he wants to do something again. And I'm like, I didn't know what to do. And then so he's like wrestled me down to the bathroom floor. He said, "Here's your magazine." And he lays it on top of me with, like open to some pictures.
Right.
And then he's just like pounding on me with his body, and he made a mess all over my magazine. And then the whole time his little brother's crying in another room. We're supposed to be babysitting. Little like 2-year-old. He's screaming. I like ran to help the kid. I'm getting out of this room and help the kid, and he's got like poop all over the place. And so I'm like covered with semen and poop, and the mom comes home, and I'm like scurrying, trying to like, where's my magazine? I gotta get my pants on. This mom's in the kitchen singing or something, and it's just like this all happened like in this like 2-week period, and then I had to go back to school like beginning of January that year, and all of
Right.
a sudden just like I'm seeing like the way people are treating me is it's like I was sure everybody knew what had happened, like somebody saw me at the store, or my friend told people what happened, or whatever, and just all these things are happening. I had started already, I guess, earlier to get stomach punches and things, but it just seemed worse. And I think it might have been maybe a look in my face or something, that I looked like a victim,
Right.
and I was really easy to like get punched in the stomach and get shoved in a locker. Um,
And
um,
those feelings of guilt and shame that so many of us victims carry, and then those that want to, it's like a wolf, they'll pick the weakest sheep, or a lion will pick out the weakest antelope in the herd and go after that bullies will do that same thing, and
exactly.
perpetrators do that same thing. So they will find the weak one and they
And
will sense that.
gym
Yeah.
teachers. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
I like routinely, like we'd have swimming and we'd all be guys in the shower, and then the teacher would whip me with a towel right on my butt coming out of the shower. um, and the
Hmm.
kids would laugh, and some of the guys were doing, like one guy was looking right at me once, and he had this, like a bottle of liquid deodorant, with a roller ball on it, and
Yeah, the roll on. Yeah.
he's squeezing the bottle, and it's like holding it down in front of his crotch, and it's like, squirting stuff out. He's like, "Look, I'm sperming," and he's looking right at me. He's laughing. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? And I'm like, um, yeah,
Wow.
so, yeah, it's like right after all this stuff happened, and I got a lot of. I just got punched by a lot of people. This one guy in particular was really mean, and Jim never. I don't think he ended up dropping out of school or something. This other guy, Ron, punched me, and I just connected with Ron a couple weeks ago on Facebook
Wow.
because he put a post up that he was, I don't know, he was like really hurting about something, and it seemed really like traumatic. And I sent him a message, and I said, "I don't know what you're going through, but I understand." He goes, "You're one of the only people that ever asked me how I'm doing and talk to me in school." And I'm like, that's weird. But anyways, it's kind of off track. So um, I learned, I started to learn to like make jokes. That someone's my 8th grade year, and I see little 7th graders get picked on, and I would do something like make a funny noise, like a weird sneeze, or do a little dance or something to distract the bullies. And they laughed at me, and they started to be their little buddies. So they're all like these big guys, and they're like, "Hey, there's our little buddy Eddie," um,
Hmm.
and and so I learned to like do a lot of diversion with humor, and I learned how to like please people, and they would say, "Oh, do a funny noise," and I'd do a funny noise, um,
Hmm.
and um, and I was friends with a lot of jerks because I don't know, whatever. So anyway, so the science teacher was distracting in class. I got in trouble in class a lot. He holds me after class one day. I'm like, "Oh crap, what's going to happen?" And then he says, "Do you want to work? Do you want to come with me and some other kids and some other adults and go work on a church camp?" And I'm like, I wasn't churched at the time. And then so I'd like, okay, sure. And then because I figured if he's asking me, I need to do what he says because he asked me. And it turned out to be a good experience, right? But the first night, there's 2 trailers, one for the girls, one for the boys. The adults had their own trailer. I'm like, I don't want to go in a trailer with a bunch of boys. I don't trust boys.
Right. Right.
Um,
For good reason.
you know,
Were
so
there staff or counselors in with them?
no, no, it was just
Wow.
a trailer full of boys aged probably 13 to 17, or
Wow.
4 boys. Anyways, so this part ends good, but so I'm like,
Okay.
I'm afraid I don't want to go to bed. I don't want to change my clothes and all this. And then one of the older boys says, "Okay, it's time to pray." So he gets us together, and we prayed, and then we went to sleep. So that that was interesting. But anyway, I became kind of then I was like basically started getting into Christianity, became a Christian,
Right.
started going to this um, prayer and praise group. Um, I think one of the reasons I went to the prayer and praise group is there was this girl who was at the camp thing who was a senior in high school, and I really liked her, so I wanted to go so that I could be where she was. And then, so one day I said, can we go out and like eat sometime or something? And she's like, "Oh, that's so sweet, but I think that you should probably go eat with somebody your own age." So, um, and then you'll see kind of like when I get into my story more, it's like all the girls are always like, "Oh, that's so sweet," but kind of thing. So,
Yeah,
anyway, she introduced.
you were the guy to be friends with and not the guy to date. Yeah,
Mhm,
I got friend zoned a lot as
mhm.
well at that age. So yeah, I get that.
Yeah. So anyway, she introduced me to this girl. So by the time I'm in 9th grade, I'm going out with this girl, Therese. Um, we just kind of did stuff like, I mean, we went on walks together. We weren't sexual necessarily, but I wanted to kiss her. but I thought I can't because she's going to think I'm trying to rape her if I kiss her.
Oh, wow.
And and so I'm like, I just couldn't do it. So anyway, this is like, this is Christmas of my, I guess my, um, it'd be my ninth grade year. And and she grabs me and we went shopping and stuff. It was Christmas shopping. This is 2 years after the other event. She grabbed me and she kissed me on the way out the door. And then I'm like, um, and then I'm like, it got me excited. I had an erection and I'm like, can't know about this because she's going to think I'm trying to rape her if she sees I have an erection. And then her dad came and picked her up and he saved me from having to do anything else. But so then I know it's Christmas because my oldest sister's previous boyfriend was visiting from college. He called over to our house and my mom answered and apparently said, he's going to have a pool party. They have a pool in their yard. My mom said, oh, you have to go over to this guy's house because they're having a pool party. It'll be fun. And my sister wasn't home. So, and this is an ex-boyfriend. I'm 15. He's like 20, probably 21.
Mm-hmm.
I go to the party. There's nobody else there except just him. So,
Wow.
so he's like, so he's asking me about my girlfriend, and I said, gosh, yeah, she's nice. I told him a little bit about her. He said, well, did you do anything with her? Did you do her? And I'm like, what do you mean exactly? He says, she needs to make you happy and do some stuff. And I'm like, what? And so he decided he'll show me what, and start rubbing me and then start sucking on me. I don't want to do this, but then this like you
How
get
old were you when all this happened?
15.
So you're still 15. Okay.
Yeah, I'm 15, and I had by this time, as far as I know, like I already locked away these other 13-year-old memories. Like I think I like convinced myself they didn't happen.
Right.
I don't
And
know.
but part of us blocks out those memories. Uh, Horribly traumatic. Those things that you've described, and it's very normal for our brains to lock those things away because that's how we survive. Is it locks those things away so we can continue breathing, continue functioning. Then when we're at a place where we can deal with it, then yeah, your brain brings those back up.
Anyway, so he did me and he says, no, you have to do me. And I'm like, of course I obliged because I felt, well, he did this for me. I have to, pay him back. Shortly after that, I started working in a movie theater, it was great. I loved the job. I could do my homework and stuff during the movies. And there were two brothers who worked there. They were older. They were college guys. They never did anything bad to me. So I'm just going to say where that's going. What they did is they were like age 21, 22, something like that. They had their own apartment. And
Right.
In Minnesota at the time, I'm like 17 by now. And you could go into bars and stuff, and clubs, and not get carded. So they thought it was fun to take me out and they like teach me how to pick up chicks. And they like I watched them and observed them and I saw their failures and successes and had to get my own way home a couple of times. And then they would have me try and go try different things. And every time, like I could do a full dance with a girl and then I'd try and pick her up and then she'd say, oh, that's so sweet. But so I never was successful. They laughed at me. But they were nice. But anyway, so the older brother ended up, this is like maybe a year later, he ended up getting a kind of like a bad spinal disease. And we were really good friends by then. And he was really a good influence. We talked and good friend. Anyway, he had this spinal disease and ended up shooting himself because he didn't want to end up in a wheelchair.
Wow.
And so that was, a little bit kind of a different kind of trauma, but I ended up going to college. Shortly after that, and I'm still a virgin. So they say, if you can't get laid at UWRF, you can't get laid. So that was my goal. And
WRF?
a UWRF, university in Wisconsin.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. So I thought I'll start hanging out with the guys there in the dorms and stuff and see how they do it. A bunch of guys came in and they wanted some beer, and they knew I had some beer, so they started taking my beer. And then I ended up getting I'm little, right? Like I'm 5'4". I'm a little guy and probably weighed 131 pounds or something. So these guys got drunk, and then they grabbed my arms and put my arms up like over my head, and put a pillowcase on it, and then put duct tape around the pillowcase, and then paraded me all over the dorms. I didn't really have any resistance. There's like 8 of these guys, and they're all laughing and have their little toy that they're parading all over it. And then they left me in a room and just left. And then I'm laying there for like with my arms bound up, and for like, I don't know, half an hour or something. Then all somebody comes in and I hear like scissors, and they're cutting off the tape, and it's a girl, and I'm like, thank you. She goes, and she's like, this is terrible. Those boys, they all suck and all this. And so she saved me. And I'm kind of like turned on, right? And then I started to try and like, can we go to your room and maybe spend some time together? And she goes, same thing. She's like, oh, that's really sweet, but I just wanted to make sure you were okay, and you should go back to your room. I did end up getting a girlfriend in college that she ended up getting pregnant by one of my friends. We were living together for a short time, and then she got pregnant, and that all changed. So I ended up thinking, okay, I'm gonna try a different lifestyle for a little bit, and met a guy who was like, I don't know, 2 years younger than me. I'm like 20 by this time. He's 18. I hated it. I didn't like that lifestyle at all. And the kind of the intimacy was real mechanical. It wasn't right for me. So I said, I graduated. I'm going home. I'm going to move back to my parents. I had my truck all packed up, and then he steals my truck because he didn't want me to go. I'm like, I'm going. And he was drunk, right? And so I reach in, trying to turn off the ignition, and he peeled out, and I went flying into the ditch. He drove off. I was laying in the ditch for like an hour, a couple broken ribs. They still hurt today. Every once in a while,
Wow.
I get that. He came back eventually. I got my stuff. I moved. And I guess the last part of the story is all my life I was like easily manipulated, victimized. I've kind of grown out of that, sort of. Just recently got kind of like a higher level position at my job, and I've been a really good dad and a good husband. But all this kind of shit's behind me. So that's the last kind of thing that happened. I was about 22, and I was doing an internship. This was right after I moved back home. And there's this woman there who's like 40, and she was always kind of flirting. And I'm like, I flirted back, thinking it was kind of innocent stuff, until she gets me in the copy room and shoves me against the wall and lifts up her dress. She says, what do you think of this? I'm like, why does this keep happening to me? Do I like something written on my head that says...
Yeah, it's like a neon sign saying, yeah, victim abused me. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's, I'm like, no. And I just ignored her the rest of the time I was on my internship.
Wow.
And then that era crossed over because a person that worked with us introduced me to my wife. She briefly knew this other person, and that life crossed over, and then I got my life after that, which I'm not going to go into like kind of what a lot of this stuff elevated or escalated into.
Right.
So the kind of stuff it escalated into is why I'm here. I didn't know I was going to be gifted with all these stories.
Yeah, you've unpacked a lot. So what are you doing now to help yourself heal? It sounds like this is a very recent part of your journey, is focusing on this and giving you the time and space to heal. So what kind of things have you found helpful? What things are you trying currently?
Well, I'm doing some of the kind of mechanical things, and then like, porn is part of the story of my more recent story. So I'm like working on detaching from that. I'm doing a sobriety challenge right now. It's like day 10 or 11 or 12. See how that goes.
Good. So sobriety from porn use. Sounds like.
Yeah, so actually sobriety from orgasm. The porn use
Okay.
I've been able to
All right.
like detach from more easily.
Right.
The physical part is not as easy. I'm sure a lot of
Right.
people have been through that. But I say, so making friends, like some really good friends in the community, has been something I never had. Even back, my friend in the movie theater friend was, we didn't talk about a lot of stuff. We did talk about a lot of other things. So that's been helpful. I'm starting to do some exercises in the academy, the Husband Material Academy, working through that. I'm not sure what my real goal is yet. And I don't like this stuff's not going to go away now that it's unlocked. I've been having a lot of anxiety just like working with it, so I don't really have it harnessed yet.
I know part of it, as you revisit some of these memories and process it, that's exactly what you need to do, is process those memories. And that means reliving the emotions that you may not have even been able to feel. So the anger, the sadness, mourning what happened, being angry about what happened, and processing those feelings. Those are very valid, and that's part of the healing process, is giving yourself the time and the space to feel. If you need to cry, cry. If you need to hit something in a constructive way, do that, whether it's a pillow or whatever. Find ways to express those emotions, for sure. Yes.
And I feel like there's a lot of, well, I cry when I'm alone. But
and that's a good thing.
Yeah, but I just,
because that's a safe place. Nobody else is going to see you. And yes, I love to cry alone. I mean, I don't enjoy crying, but I mean, I cry if I need to cry. And crying in the shower, whatever you need to do. Yeah, it's healthy, healing tears. It's a good thing. It really is.
Yes.
We have a question from the audience. How and when did memories of sexual abuse become known to you? So sounds like you blocked out a lot of these memories, and then something happened recently where, a lot of these memories started flooding back. Is that right?
I think so. The mark, like the one with the woman at my internship, that one I remembered. It was very much like on the surface. I remembered some of the 15-year-old stuff, but didn't really realize the timing and why it happened. And I didn't remember this whole thing about using a question about my girlfriend to, what's the word, to kind of like prep me or to pull me in.
Yeah. Right.
And so that's something I recently realized. That's more of a recent thing. So some of these other things, like putting together all these moments where I was like really vulnerable or really subject, like to getting tied up with duct tape. I remember that, but I didn't laugh about it. I didn't cry about it. I just but now I look at it, it's like, that was really abusive. And
yeah.
But so there's this whole section, kind of like 7th grade and before, like none of that I thought about. And the way I got to it was, when I first started Husband Material, I'm like, okay, we got to find the root. What is the boy doing, and kind of thing. And then I'm like, where did this start? Why did I start doing all this weird stuff as an adult? And then I'm just like, these things came out of sequence. Like, okay, I remember like shadowy moments of this and that, and then all of a sudden, so it's like I'm in this bathroom in the department store in my mind. And this, before I even saw the abuse, I just this space. I remember being in space, and I see the colors of the walls and the tiles, and where the urinals are here, and the toilets are here, and the sinks are there, and the doors over here. And I'm like, oh, my mom's out there. And then there's this guy, and it just kind of like, it starts firing off. And then so I had to go back farther and say, what was I doing before that? And I'm like, oh man, that was like Christmas. So that year I got the Playboy. And then so
you're starting to piece all these things together and realizing the impact. And most of your story, the theme I'm seeing is that your perps were also your peers. That it doesn't seem like anyone who was significantly older than you Except I think you were a teenager and there was like a 20-year-old.
Well, the
So
guy
that
in
was
the guy in the
still TV.
bathroom was definitely
Oh, yes.
older and a
And
complete
then
stranger.
chased you around the mall. Yeah.
Yeah, so and
Yeah.
that's to me that's probably like the worst thing because even when I was saying that out loud, I'm like I'm panicking because I'm remembering trying to get away from this guy and he was like he had this horrible grin on his face. And
Yeah. I think for those peers, usually for someone at that age to be so knowledgeable sexually, usually is an indicator that they were abused by some adult. And then they are then replaying that abuse to others, not necessarily trying to do anything bad necessarily, but it's like what they're learning from their perpetrator and then they're passing it on. And some of it is like you're bullied, so then you bully others. That same thing as well. Sometimes that dynamic is in there. But yeah, that whole mall thing, so scary. And you've never told anyone about that until today? This is the first time you've told anyone?
I have a friend here who I've told this in like text, but
Uh-huh.
not spoken.
Okay. Right. Okay.
And then also, I published these as journal entries.
Yeah, so you're starting to get this out. Now, how much does your wife know of your story?
So what I've told her is it's kind of like when I was talking about doing, like I said, I'm going to be in some meetings and things on the computer. I'll have my door shut, and what I'm working through is I had some childhood sexual abuse. She's like, "Oh, what happened?" And I said, "A stranger attacked me in a public bathroom." And she's like, "Oh, really? It's like really serious." I'm like, "Well, I guess it is." That's about
Yeah.
it. I mean, it's
So you haven't told her any of the other events that have happened as well?
no, and
Okay.
some of that I try and justify that and say, well, that's what boys do, overnights. But I don't
No.
think
Yeah,
it's not.
I think that's how they get away with it and why boys don't tell that boys will justify that, oh, that's just boys being boys or acting out or not realizing that so much of that is abusive. It's not just child's play. So yeah, it's very difficult to come to that realization and realizing, oh no, this is not just child's play, this is abusive. And it was not a good thing. So you've been in husband material and that seems to be helping. Anything else? And also, audience members like that last person, feel free to add more questions to the Q&A. So what else has been helping? You're in husband material. Have you tried one-on-one coaching, or do you have a therapist, or are you just mostly just exploring things on your own through the support group that we have in the husband material?
Well, right now I'm just kind of like going through the tall grass with my machete, making a path, I guess.
Wow.
But I mean,
So you're really new on this healing journey, which yeah, everyone starts somewhere. And yeah, and this is a
but
huge
yeah,
step.
the friendship I've gotten through the community has been like just. I mean, it's undescribable how valuable that is.
Right. And having that safe place to share and knowing that you're not going to be bullied, you're not going to be made fun of, you'll be accepted and loved on. And it's okay. And know that it was not your fault. None of this, what you explained, none of it was your fault. Some of it wrong place, wrong time. A lot of it wrong place, wrong time with the wrong people.
But I was so easily
You were weak,
I did it.
but you were groomed, you were tricked into doing a lot of these things and forced to do a lot of those things. Yeah, what you described, it was beyond just sexual abuse. I mean, some of it basically rape, sexual assault, all those different words could describe a lot of those events that you shared. And that such a profound effect on you. Have you looked into what those things have done? I know you mentioned the porn addiction, but have you looked into like PTSD, which is very common for abuse survivors?
Really? No,
You have not?
I haven't. No.
Yeah, I would suggest looking at that and seeing, oh, maybe I do have PTSD, because that's a lot of trauma. What you listed was a lot of trauma. And another resource, and I have the links in the husband material as well, but there's something called ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences, that it was a survey done by Kaiser Permanente and the city of San Diego, I believe. And this was several years ago. Looking, it was actually people in the suburbs, mostly white, mostly middle class Americans, asking a series of 10 questions that if this adverse childhood experience happened to you, and they list 10 different possibilities like divorce, death of a family member, abuse, alcohol abuse, all these things happening. Out of those 10 questions, if you got so many yeses, they would then see, okay, who has one yes, who had two yeses, and then followed them over a period of years to see what different health problems they have, what mental health problems that they have. It was astounding. I mean, up to, I think most of the charts end at 4. So if you have a 4 or above, all of these horrible things statistically shown that they have a horrible rate effect on your physicality, on your mental status. So more suicides, more overweight, more health problems like liver problems, smoking, unwanted pregnancies, all the huge list. The percentage is just huge, even with like 3, 4, 5 of these adverse experiences, and how much long-term effects there are to something that happened when we were children. It's profound. And I'll have those links to the show notes, but you can Google ACEs, ACES, Adverse Childhood Experiences, and there's lots of information on the internet. And if you're on husband material, I have a post there as well on ACEs in the main community and in the CSA fellowship support group as well on the ACEs. I just duplicated the article. But lots of great information about that and how these things really affect us, even into late adulthood. That things like obesity, all these different things. And PTSD as well is very, very common for abuse survivors. That there's tons of symptoms. Hypervigilance is one, where you're in crowds, like at a church or at any kind of big group crowd. Do you feel uncomfortable? Do you feel like you're looking for the exits and trying to keep yourself safe, and you'd rather be on the edge near an exit and you feel safer that way than in the middle of the crowd hanging out? Yeah, hypervigilance. That's a symptom. And it's like, oh, that's a thing? Oh, that has a name? Okay. But that's something to consider for sure, that your experiences have such a profound effect on how you see the world, how you respond to the world. And as you heal, you learn how to respond in the way that little Ed would have responded had those horrible things not happened to him. Mm-hmm. And you learn who the true Ed really is as you heal. And it's an amazing process. I'm still going through it. And now, homeowner. Never did I think I'd be a homeowner. I mean, that's it still blows my mind. So we've got more comments and questions. It sounds like your humor saved you and was a good out for you. And yeah, it sounds like, yeah, that was a defense mechanism for you for sure, using humor. And I think I could relate to some of that because, yeah, I would do that some degree, though, yeah, not as good as others around me that they were more clowns or had bigger senses of humor. But yeah, I would use humor as a defense mechanism for sure. And you found yourself doing that, right?
Yeah. Too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But it's what you needed, and it was effective, and it got you out of tight spots. And it also, I love the part of your story where you said you used humor to help protect other younger, more vulnerable people who were being bullied from getting further bullied. So you would stick up for them by using the only weapon you had, which was your own humor. And I love that. That's such compassion. That shows how much of a heart you have for others. And yeah, I really like that part of your story. Chad says from our audience, thank you so much for sharing your story of abuse. I'm sorry for all that happened to you. It was not your fault. And yes, I agree. Like you said, the shame and the guilt, not something we deserve to have burdened with. That the shame and the guilt belongs to the perpetrators, not to us survivors. And sharing your story is a huge step because it helps get it out. And so that burden doesn't stay hidden inside. And it's like, oh, wow. And it wasn't your fault. Alan says, Ed, you are so strong to share this tonight for the first time. I am so happy for the progress you have made since starting this journey. So happy to be taking this journey together. Yeah. Thank you, Alan. Yes, I agree. Yeah, that's an excellent first step. And thank you so much, Ed, for sharing your story. Ed is part of Husband Material and part of our Polar Life community. And if you want to learn more about that, you can go to polarlifeconsulting.com. And all those resources are there. And any closing thoughts, Ed?
No, I appreciate the opportunity. Everybody kind of thinks, everybody has these stories and they say, my stuff maybe wasn't that bad compared to everybody else. And I feel like, sort of, I don't have a reason to complain, that kind of thing. I work with
I get that too, but it's not a contest.
Yeah.
And it's all abuse and it all hurts. And dude, you had a severe story. So you had a lot of really crappy things happen to you. Again and again and again. And yeah, that was profound. And you're still speaking and breathing and
remembering to breathe.
Yeah.
Breathing is important. Yeah.
And now you're at a point where God's saying, yeah, now it's time to heal. So congratulations on taking the first step towards healing. And thank you so much for being here tonight and sharing this and allowing us to be part of this journey with you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Ed.
If you would like to learn more about my coaching with Polar Life Consulting, where I provide one-on-one coaching and group coaching, both with a focus on healing for male survivors, reach out to me at polarlifeconsulting.com. That is Polar spelled P-O-L-A-R. I would love to hear from you. I want to hear your story. If you would like your story featured on this podcast, contact me via my website. If you like this podcast, please rate and review because that's how other people can find me, and I really want to spread this message of healing and hope to others. And remember, you are not alone. Healing is possible, and the abuse was not your fault. Let me repeat that. The abuse was not your fault. See you next time on the Healing for Male Survivors podcast.